Fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Yep, I think we have an exciting panel here. We want to get them nice and loose so that we can talk about node validation and everything that goes with it. I'm Graham from Republic. I'll be trying to keep this conversation moving. I think it would be really great if we could just open with a brief intro to everybody, what you do, what your company does, and then we'll quickly kick it off from there. If you would take it away, Will.
Yeah, so my name is William Wett. I'm the lead engineer for the treasury management arm of Republic Crypto, specifically focused on the automated provisioning and operational management of validators as well as Node RPC infrastructure for a variety of chains.
See how close I can get here without making it crackle. My name is Patrick O'Grady. There we go. I'm the head of engineering at Avalabs. We maintain the Avalanche Go software that's often used in different staking operations, and we also make available a number of tools to help manage your performance as a validator, as well as get notified when your validator is having different issues.
I'm Park. I am a protocol onboarding lead at Figment. We're a major staking provider. We stake on 40 plus networks, and we are basically at every event because we support most of these events. So I'm glad to be here.
Likewise, and I'm Sam Benyakob. I'm the co-founder of Journal du Coin, which is the main media dealing with crypto in French-speaking countries. And right now, I'm also busy reducing my life expectancy working on Node Guardians, which is a self-custodian staking provider with some exotic perks, and it's been fun so far, and thanks. Thank you for having us, I guess. Thank you.
Let's give them a round of applause, everybody. Yeah. Even validators need validation. Sorry, actually, Patrick, would you just kick us off with a little 101 or high level about staking and validating on Avalanche so that everyone can get a little education?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. So I think I'll start off first off with where we are now. So I think there's about 1,300 different validators on Avalanche. Most of those, I think all of them probably run some variant of Avalanche Go. As a validator on Avalanche, we try to make it really accessible for anyone to do it. So we spend a lot of time really investing in the node tooling and Avalanche Go to make it easy to use. But I think there's a few first things I'll get to. First off, as a validator, you're required to stake some minimum amount of AVOX, 2,000 AVOX, so for anyone that isn't aware. And then it's just as easy as starting up Avalanche Go, waiting for it to sync. You go to the web wallet, you pick your node ID, you stake, and then you can stake for up to a year. And I think the big thing that people always wonder is like, okay, if I'm not performing, will I get slashed? In Avalanche, there's no slashing. So I think that sets the table here for what validation is. And I think now on the subnet stage, it probably makes sense to touch on that. To participate in a subnet, you must be a validator on Avalanche's primary network. So many people that are interested in playing around with subnets, that may not have been a validator before but are interested in running subnets will start to encounter it for the first time. So, and then I'll leave you with, if you have any suggestions or different tools that would be great to add or different changes you'd like to see to Avalanche Go to make it easier, please let me know. We're always trying to improve, and we do spend a lot of time and really care about the validator experience. So,
wonderful. So I do have a question. Obviously, the four of you, I guess, would be in the pro leagues for validation, but part of Avalanche, part of decentralization is how do we bring on, basically everybody in this room. Would love to get some feedback. I know Figment is dealing with institutional. You've also been firing up. Everybody here is operating. So would love to just go around and say, what can we do to onboard? How can we increase the scaling? Obviously, it makes a more robust network.
Sure. Yeah, so this is one of the things that I sort of took a step back and tried to, look at what made me want to get involved in blockchain technology to start off with. And the premise of disintermediating access to financial resources is obviously one of those things, but the disintermediation of the workforce being able to participate in proof of stake networks, I think, is a really kind of compelling idea as well. I think like we're going through this this stage right now, as you alluded to, where there are some walled gardens that exist right, which is necessary at this stage. There's a variety of different, open entry points into those, but I think one of the really, the next stage of that, which I personally would love to see happen, would be how we get to a point where as many people as possible can actually participate as staking validators and node runners within the network. And from an Avalanche specific context, the unbounded size of the consensus within the network itself, or the validator set, is, I think, a really good precipitate to actually enable people to start to participate. Obviously, there's the 2,000 AVAX kind of introductory stake that's required, but it does open a gate for us as, large token holders, large kind of asset holders to consider ways to, stake those nodes for other people to run on our behalf as well. So that's a model that I'm particularly interested in, and it's a problem that I want to solve. I have immediate needs in terms of bringing people into my team to be able to scale. If we want to build a system which can hyperscale to humanity's needs, then I do think that we need to consider how that network actually builds synergy with labor and workforce outside. So that's something that I'm particularly interested in. I think the decentralization, the aspect of decentralization that's provided through the unbounded validator set is particularly interested in that regard.
I just talk, so.
Let me see if I can pronounce this word correctly, because some people get stuck on it. Documentation. Okay, here you go.
Yeah, so you guys were basically talking about how to get more people involved in running validators, securing the network. And so there's that good thing on Avalanche, which is that setting up a node doesn't require that much of a technical background. The documentation is pretty decent, even though it has to be updated, so the commands are up to date with the latest build that's on GitHub. But, it's getting there. It's pretty good. And then you have some scripts to update your node. Even someone who's not technical can run a node. And then there's another problematic, which is onboarding as many users to get involved with securing the network as delegators. And I think that's where platforms like Republic can be super relevant, as they also reach out to a lot of retail users. Figment also has a big community and has a lot of resources that are being put regularly, and that's also what we focus on at Node Guardians. And it all came out from observing one thing. So I have that media with millions of users that sometimes haven't heard about staking, but still they have an interest in crypto, and they miss out on hedging themselves from the inflation of the protocol. They just keep the blue and the red token on the green platform. And, it would be nice to make some, to have some efforts to have some, educate, potentially a large amount of users to what it is to actually secure networks, and that it is possible to get involved with, delegation and also setting up your own node. And Avalanche is pretty incredible on that aspect. And so, yeah, the more resources we have, the better the better we, the better the result. And so Node Guardians just leverages that background that we have, building a community of people that share that interest for crypto, and tries to bridge basically people that are not that technical with the whole concept of delegation.
Yeah, I mean, I joke around, right, about documentation, but one of my main roles at Figment is onboarding nascent protocols, right? So we have these very new things that are coming in. And so when I say this, that documentation is important, I mean it is crucial. And it's crucial to get it in there up early with as much detail as possible in an intelligible format. And that's also something that you can do right at the ground level. So when you're building a protocol in general, because we're trying to think here is also more widely, how should protocols think about nodes? You need to be able to give people an easy on-ramp. And so obviously it's great to have Avalanche in a good place where it's possible to run infrastructure and have it run available for subnets, but it's also crucial for any little details that are necessary to make it happen to be very obvious, because otherwise, yeah, the information is just very hidden, and you end up on a Discord server and something falls apart and you're just messaging the whole chat trying to find what the right move is and at everyone, and then you just had to hear that hellish Discord sound and you're not sure if anyone's responded to your question. So
Yeah, I feel like I'm talking with background music. I feel like I'm in my own theme show. Yeah. You know, I mean, my metric for this really is how many delegators are there that have over 2,000 Vox staked? Because that's really the group of people that are like, okay, they're just not for some reason. Now, there's a whole different concern with people that have, like, let's say, up to 3 million of Vox staked. But I think for this conversation, it makes sense to talk about that group of people. Now, there are 18,000 delegators on Avalanche right now. I would assume at least 5,000 of those probably have more than 2,000 of Vox staked. And, you know, everyone's paying a fee that's doing that. So the people that are doing it either, A, like, are not technical enough to run a node, B, just don't want the trouble of it. Maybe they run multiple, so there's an option to delegate. They'll take it. And I think, you know, what we at Ava Labs are trying to help with is obviously making it easier, trying to do the documentation part here and there, keeping the GitHub command up to date, hopefully. We have an installer script that makes it really easy to install and update your node, which is great. But we're also trying to leverage some of our relationships to expand the one-click validation offering. Because I think many of the people that you know, are mildly technical but don't want to do everything from scratch would really value like having a really nice template to start from and then maintaining their node from there. So you know, we're really trying to make it more accessible for people that are maybe moderately technical, but that's a number I'll be tracking. And actually, I hadn't really thought about adding that to the stats page, and I think that'd be a really good one to add to kind of keep us honest on you know, how many people there are in that category.
Yeah, I mean, I can attest to the quality of the documentation and the ease of use of the installation process. So I think if there is anyone out there that wants to use or to get started in validation, running nodes, then Avalanche is a great place to start. And Patrick's team does an amazing job in terms of providing metrics and statistics that enable you to be confident in running that infrastructure as well. So, and it's a continual thing. There's a continuous development process that they're operating, which is providing more and more, and they take feedback from the community. The community is very active in Discord as well. There's a variety of different people, you know, there that are looking at different ways of hosting, different cloud providers, different compilation options for the actual binary, and you know, looking for efficiencies in that area. So I think if anyone's interested in that kind of stuff, you know, Avalanche is the place to go. And the unbounded delegator set is, or the unbounded validator set is really the precipitate for that.
Yeah, so I'd actually be very curious. We talked a lot. I obviously think for the mass appeal, single click, you know, good user interfaces, all makes sense. On the technical side, I know that in crypto we are always short on talent. I'd be very curious just to hear from each of your companies. Let's say there are more technical, sophisticated people in this room. Where do you find deficiencies, and you know, where would you love to staff generally? Start with let's go to Sam. Put Sam on the spot.
Could you please like rephrase the
Yeah,
the
where do you
sense of
see vacancies in talent? Like if you had to build a team, just for people looking to get jobs.
So overall, in the process of like recruiting, like let's say, we're gonna call them like blockchain talents. I think that the DevOps space in crypto has to gain maturity. When you compare it to what's being done, for instance, maintaining like MMORPGs, massive like server data centers and everything. But so far it's great. I think I've been struggling a little bit to find security researchers like blue team, red team, people who are able to assess the quality of the architecture that you're building up for your infrastructure of nodes. But overall, I think that there is a shortage of talent on pretty much every line, but there are a lot of initiatives that are working on bridging like all that talent from Web 2 and making it Web 3 ready. So that makes the future very exciting. But yeah, that would be my input on that question actually. There is a shortage everywhere. But yeah, on the security and DevOps side, I think that, yeah, we could gain, it could improve. Yeah.
So we're a multi-talented organization. No, so one of the products that we have spun off is we are starting a DAO called Builder DAO. And we're in the progress, we're in the very opening stages, and a big part of it is to get people educated on running validation services or building things in the different networks that we support on our Learn platform. And those can be generated by the community. And so it allows us in one way to kind of get ahead of the funnel, if that makes sense. And so from our end, like we kind of are trying to think about it that way. But also it's just a recognition that the reason it's hard to hire people in this space is because there's not a lot of them when it really comes down to it. Like everyone's anyone who's above a certain threshold is working on their own project. You know what I mean? So it's hard to find people who are like this entry level who can come in and just like learn how to do the work. And so I think if there's any sort of gap, it's honestly like, how do you make things entry level? What are automations that you can provide and offer to people so that they can learn how to do this stuff if they don't have a lot of experience doing it? So obviously, like you've touched on a lot of that, making it easier for people. But like providing automations for maintenance, huge help for people, because it allows people who have no experience on the operational side to be able to continue engaging with it and growing their ability, and then that way like the talent pool can grow very easily, largely on that basis that like you can have people who have no experience who can come into an organization and then steadily grow their capacity.
Yeah, I mean, I think the nature of crypto, which is fantastic, is everyone really, at least in this market, has a chance to be part of a founding team that has the, and most people it goes well for. So for hiring, especially at a company like Avalabs, where you're on a protocol that's existed for a while, you can't necessarily provide the same economics as you could of like first 3 people on some random token or something like that, right? And so for us, there's a certain complexity to even getting the attention of different people because everyone wants to start their own protocol or start their own thing. And so we've had a lot more success targeting people, let's say that have been very proficient in the Web 2 space, and then bringing them into different areas of the company and working with them to get them up to speed. Now, I think the way I judge talent in the space really is about how long does it take to onboard people in different positions, and like, where does that happen? As much as, we like to focus on protocol, I think it takes probably eight months maybe to bring up someone up to speed where they're like, I would trust them to develop a really important feature on a protocol layer. For many people, they don't really have that problem because they either just deploy a smart contract or like they're doing something, on a more minimal than just a protocol from scratch. But I think that's the area where we've found it to be not necessarily the most difficult to hire someone to join that team because everyone is super excited about that. But to be proficient at that place just takes time. So,
Yeah, I think echoing what's been said, the challenge I think industry-wide is continuing to bring on experience from legacy IT, and I think DevOps is a huge kind of emerging area, and it's definitely something that we've been highly motivated to ensure that we establish patterns and practices from continuous integration, continuous deployment perspective that use industry standard technologies from kind of traditional IT. So we've definitely been working to try to make that on-ramp for existing IT talent to come on board with us to become valuable assets within the DevOps space in crypto too. And running validator infrastructure and node infrastructure is a great way to move from traditional IT into the crypto space, even if you don't have a huge experience, or don't consider yourself to have a wide kind of knowledge base in the crypto area, because a lot of things are translatable from the DevOps models that you traditionally work with. So I think it's a great way to kind of make that move.
Excellent. I think we're seeing a large conversation in the space in general that maybe salaries need to come up and everybody needs the due respect so that we have less tokens floating out there, maybe with low utility. So that being said, on other networks, obviously there's a lot of malicious mining that goes on. I think we're all familiar with MEV and such. Maybe not. Hopefully you are. But would love to just pass it back to you, Patrick. How does Avalanche really take care of this, and what are the expectations that we can put out to the public?
Contentious question, potentially. So, I mean, on any network, on a peer-to-peer network, I think there's always some capacity for, the block producer extractable value. And I want to kind of generalize it more so than just miner extractable value, right? But as long as the ordering, of the blocks themselves is not mandated by the protocol in some way, there's obviously going to be room to play around with it. And now I think most extractable value today comes from analyzing the mempool and then waiting for your turn as a validator to then insert things in a way that is beneficial to you, and then injecting transactions that aren't normally in the mempool for everyone else to see. Some people have gone about this in one way where they make it really easy to monetize that for anybody as a way to democratize that value to any miner that may not have the ability to do it themselves. That's MEV Geth is the major project there that does that, and I think that's one totally valid way to approach the problem. There's another approach, which is to instead provide much different, maybe different types of control on the way that gossip flows throughout the network. And so you can provide, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here because this isn't live yet, but different sort of ways you can parameterize the gossip as a node operator to specify and observe if people are manipulating your transaction in some way to limit the gossip propagation if you so choose. Now you may not choose because it's probably always going to be faster, especially if your transaction has some value, to just gossip it to everybody because it'll get to a block producer more quickly. But in some cases for a larger transaction or something that you're maybe not aware of how to defend very clearly, you could maybe attach different claims or constraints on your transaction and how it's gossiped through the network to make sure that it is only seen by people you trust or people that are not going to do something to your transaction. But I wouldn't say that there's anything that's like MEV is not possible here because blah. I think that subnets will explore this idea a lot and change the virtual machine in some interesting ways to mandate certain ordering so that it maybe changes the game a little bit. But I don't think it's a problem that just will go away or anything like that. And I think that there's just a number of different ways you can try to mitigate it. In many ways, it's like security. You can't solve it. And there's always going to be someone interested in trying to profit off of it. But you can look at what the common patterns are and then try to work around them if you so choose. Yeah.
Perfect.
I don't know if anyone else wants to chime in on that one. That's a fun one. Figment going to offer MEV service?
Yeah, we run Flashbots.
It's a profitable game. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're taking a look at some of the opportunities that exist in that, and I think some of those opportunities have to be seen as public services and good within the network. So rebalancing of pools, opportunities that exist from that perspective, that's a good thing. So I think there's obviously the malicious side of it, but there's also the public good side of it too. So yeah, that's definitely something we're looking into.
Awesome. I'd be curious to know, Will, you had mentioned something before we went into this, that there's a couple chains out there with downed nodes, basically, people that have sort of fallen off or maybe can't maintain themselves. Do you think that the expectations right now, obviously we're a decentralized group, so it's very hard to get people in line, but as you mentioned, Netflix would never tolerate their servers going down. So we'd just love to get your take on, basically, have we matured, and do you see that the expectations are being set to a higher degree? And I'm sure a lot of that will be corrected with more talent coming into the space.
Yeah, I mean, uptime expectations are an interesting kind of parameter, I think, with any proof-of-stake network. And Avalanche's 80% uptime is not particularly high, right? I mean, if you're talking about doing a 3-month stake, you have a very reasonable amount of time to have issues or to run administrative updates, to perform Avalanche Go updates as they're required. And it also enables greater participation. So I think you don't necessarily want to push things up so high that you remove the opportunity for people to run stuff at home, to experiment and to find new avenues and new ways of doing things. So I think the uptime shouldn't be so high as to kind of preclude that opportunity for people. But yeah, there are definitely chains out there that do not have the kind of technical implementation ready to even kind of boot out nodes that have potentially been offline for months, and Avalanche definitely is not one of those. The validator set is well maintained. All of the statistical analysis that's available through all of the great tools that Patrick's team are building, enable people to adequately manage, all the infrastructure that are running. So kudos to you guys. I mean, you really do a great job with all that.
I'd actually love to ask a question about that a little bit. So one of the cool things in my mind about Avalanche is that there's a probabilistic model to how it is that a lot of the network works overall. So would you say that downtime permission or downtime, like, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is here, like the ability for people to have a little bit of downtime is also is available because of the probabilistic guarantees of the system? That's kind of a yes or no question, so I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that the benefits of that, that lower threshold of requirement because of the probabilistic model of the, the consensus mechanism is ultimately a very valuable thing from a node operator's perspective. I mean, part of what we're always having to do when we run these things, for instance, is make sure we have adequate disaster recovery capabilities. But the requirement for those disaster recovery capabilities are, diminished by the fact that you have the ability to have downtime, which is a necessary function of running infrastructure, right? That's always going to happen at some point. And Avalanche, in terms of that node operator, the downtime requirements is fantastic for that. And I really think it's very important to keep that as low as possible to enable that entry to be as easy as possible for as many people as possible.
Was that intentional, or was it just something that happened as a result of designing a probabilistic model?
I don't know. I'd have to ask Patrick on that side. Maybe it's just an emergent kind of property of the system, or?
So I think that the discussion around governance, particularly staking related to downed nodes, is a complicated one. I think that some protocols take an approach where if you're down for some amount of time, like you get some percentage of your stake slashed. Some also add an additional tenet that it's correlated. So like if you're down with a bunch of other people, you're going to get slashed more. I think the idea with that parameter, and just to remind everyone, it started at 60% when the network launched. It's gone up to 80%. Was more of a reflection of it's a new network. The software is new. There could be bugs unrelated to anyone's fault that like your node is having trouble, maybe particularly impacted. And it felt, I think some would consider it to be unfair that like, okay, I did everything I possibly could and you had a bug and now I got slashed 5% of my stake. So, in other networks where that happens, there's a conversation always of like, oh, should we roll it back to like undo that slash or something like that? I'm particularly interested in slashing when you get to a super mature network where, you still have bugs, obviously, but like hopefully they're much less and they don't affect people as much, especially if there's multiple clients. You have node recovery, you have disaster recovery. But that number, we think, will probably, it could continue to go up as, the software becomes more reliable, there's more providers out there and everything like that. But generally speaking, it's more of a reflection of the growing maturity of the software, and I think it's important to give that wiggle room. Now, people may say, okay, 80% uptime, does that mean everyone just turns off their node 20% of the time and then just waits to make sure that they go up? Based on the statistics we've collected, somewhere between 98 and 99% of all stake is online all the time. So it's more of we see a very virtuous cycle of nodes that are online a lot, get more delegations, get more fees, get more Vox, and then the circle kind of comes around. And that has been a very positive cycle, I would say, into the reliability of nodes and keeping people honest with, okay, maybe you have good uptime, but every day you go down for an hour, like maybe that's still 90% up or whatever like that, and making that information publicly accessible so that when you are considering delegating, you want to ideally pick something that's great for the network. And so most people will consider that. So.
Yeah, what is really nice about Avalanche, and you mentioned it before, is that you can like casually run a node and, okay, that's not ideal, but you can really go on a holiday, forget to go from 1.72 to 1.73, find that your node is down since 3 days, but that's still okay at the scale of a whole year. And what also is really cool about Avalanche, Parker mentioned, is that it's the consensus system is it relies on probabilities, and you have these iterations, this sampling that happens over and over again. I think that's a very mature approach to reach consensus, and without having a network that is too hardware bound. It means that even with toasters, it offers like fast finality, while other arbitrary POS systems sometimes could not necessarily offer something similar. But ideally, you would want to have this uptime requirement to go up, because yeah, I think that this buffer zone of 20% is maybe a bit very generous. I think 20% is maybe a bit too much. But yeah, you don't have an incentive to just kill the machine because and go validate on Phantom or another network just to save on the, for instance, like the cloud provider cost, because it is so cheap to run an Avalanche node, and I think that's something that's really amazing. Yeah.
One last thing I'll add there is when you say like, oh, I forget to go on holiday and my node's down for 3 days, right? Like, hopefully not everyone does that at once, and that's why you have some sort of minimum uptime requirement, right? I think that it's just been fortunate, and I think the positive economics align so that people don't tend to do that because they want to collect delegations and stuff. But it is definitely an evolving conversation that we, as more people start to run, different Avalanche validators really look for community input on as a way that is a meaningful approach to it that maybe isn't too prohibitive, such that people are scared to run a node for the first time, or I added this subnet to my node and all of a sudden it was a bad subnet, and it used way too much CPU and now the node is choking or something like that. So there are a lot of considerations there that will evolve, especially over the next year, I think.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add on that front. Yeah.
I was going to say everyone in crypto knows that there's no holidays anyway, so your excuse is invalid. I know we only have a couple minutes, so simple question. You are supporting a global and open financial ecosystem. Do you get any warm fuzzies from that?
Absolutely, yep.
Dive into that. I know you have a take.
Yeah, I think, I touched on it towards the beginning of this session as well about making sure that we can achieve, a synergy with our labor and workforce in society as well. So I think it's vitally important that we are able to build an army of engineers that can support a network like this at scale, which could potentially, in the future. I'm an idealist, I fully admit that, but conceivably we can get to a situation where we are at humanity scale for something, and I do think that we need to make sure that we kind of continue to build out that synergy, and Patrick and his team are continuing to offer configuration changes and software changes which continue to incentivize and build out the decentralization of the network. So I think that that's a really positive kind of attribute of what's being built here, and it's something that I'm particularly interested in seeing how that kind of evolves over time.
I'll be quick here. I guess my job doesn't feel like a job. It's it's what I would do in my free time if I, didn't have to work or whatever like that. And so, for me, it's it's obviously a community participation point, but it's also just so intellectually stimulating to work with all these amazing people, some of the smartest people I've ever met, on problems that I think are so foundational to the society we're looking to create, over the next couple decades. So.
Yeah, I think warm fuzzies is like a great way of putting it, but I think if we want to be more serious about it, could potentially be the biggest problem that we solve. It could be a massive ability to coordinate people using a transactional system, and that's really the value proposition of the technology that's being invented. I mean, it's great you can make money. It's great that you can secure the network, but why are we securing the network? What's the coordination for? What's the purpose? So yeah, that's the warm fuzzy for me. And that's why Figment's in the game. That's what we're trying to build. We're trying to help this entire space develop specifically for that purpose, because it's a lot more about what the long tail of this technology can provide to broader society, and the coordination that can come as a result of the technology being implemented and the things that are built on it. And we don't know if Avalanche is going to be the one that'll hit that. We don't know if Ethereum will do that. But it's amazing to see people trying. And it's amazing to see people working towards that outcome. I mean, we've got doves in here. I'm clearly saying something impactful. No, but in all sincerity, yes. I don't think I think there's a lot of people in here who, I would say most people in here are not in here specifically because you can make money in crypto.
Well, you can make up money. Just kidding.
You might say all the currencies are kind of a figment.
But
Yeah, I'll just add a last remark, a last few words. I mean, it's all very exciting to see like these coordination tools, like reaching out to more people, and like the problem that we try to solve on our side is just how like to create the tools and the initiatives that will help us go from having 200 million like wallets that are on Earth active, not even like probably 50 million, to a few hundred million to a few billions, so that we can reach a point where we can claim that we finally like set the standard. Because I think that for now, it's all very interesting to see that the technology is mature enough to host like an activity that is that big, and that there is an upside that we can welcome like dozens of millions of people more. But how to tackle that issue and get more people involved from both like the community side, the delegator like side, and also like people who are running infrastructure in an in an isolated way, not only like staking providers. Like that's also like a problem that's very exciting to tackle, because at the end of the day, you want to have as many people involved in that space. It's so important. It's about sovereignty, and it's about the option to having the option to say no. That's great to have like that alternative way to exchange like messages or value, and become a bit sovereign in a time where you get pretty much like not so much freedom left. I don't know how to phrase it, but yeah.
Yeah. I think it's all amazing, and I mean, honestly, we are still very early. So a lot of this is going to continue to manifest, and I can't wait to see what people continue to build. Everybody, I think that is our time. So show of hands, yep.
Up only.